we'll be going through this gene tracking system that was developed in a way to facilitate groups to be able to see the progress of status of gene curation. And so I just want to start off with the acknowledgments. This was done in collaboration with the Shep Center here at UNC, and we have our developer or programmer, TJ Ward, as well as our application analyst, Maria Tobin, who worked really nicely with myself, as well as Jenny, who has introduced us on the call, to really be able to build this database so that it had a lot of utility for our gene curation expert panels and can help with reporting. Oh, sorry, I do want to mention, though, that this was launched in October 2018. It is a standalone database at this point, but we do have new updates that about a week ago we were able to come through the streaming service, which is a service on ClinGen that uses a certain platform for us to be able to exchange and communicate information. And so eventually we do help to enhance this gene tracking system to automatically update statuses pertaining from the GCI. So just to go over, the purpose of this was to provide a centralized database to catalog all planned, in progress, and completed gene disease curations and record evidence supporting the lumping and splitting decisions. Mostly this is going to be the pre-curation and how you've defined the disease entity for the specific gene disease relationship curation. In essence, this helps to avoid duplication of curator effort. We can see what genes are being looked at by all different affiliations, and so we can make sure that we aren't duplicating our efforts or our records. It also does promote discussion between groups interested in curating the same gene, and this can help with collection of evidence as well as defining those disease entities. It allows for assignment of curators to different genes for pre-curation or for gene disease pairs. So coordinators could use this to assign off genes, and it can alert those individuals to the curation that they may be performing. And it also facilitates that pre-curation process, as I mentioned, defining by the lumping and splitting working group. And lastly, it does a report generation or generates reports that can help facilitate the coordinators for milestone and progress report updates. Just to see how well they're moving through genes, curations, and how fast their throughput is. And so some really nice utility and features that it does supply is that there's a bulk upload of the gene list. We do recognize that there are some gene curation expert panels that may have 20 to 30 genes. We have other ones that have closer to 1,000 genes on their list. And so to be able to facilitate this, we wanted to have a bulk upload that allows a one-time complete upload of your gene list into the tracking system. And so it does circumvent this manual entry of each gene, hopefully making that a higher throughput process. Also, we have a curation export, and so this will export your gene list, and this can either be specific by the GSEP affiliation, or it can be the entire gene list. And you can specify this between a date range or over all dates that the GSEP has been recording. So this list will include some important information such as the gene name, your affiliation, the curator assigned, the disease entity, as well as all status dates. So these status dates are the status of the actual gene disease curation, which include that it was in progress, provisional, approved, and published. We've also added in the ability of recuration and whether this curation is now up for a recuration. It does facilitate reporting of the curation progress for NIH quarterly and yearly updates, as well as an individual GSEP's progress. I will say, though, that this curation export is going to be limited mostly on a permission level access to coordinators for the full entire gene list for ClinGen. And so each individual may be able to look at certain genes, but they will not be able to, as a curator alone, download this list. This is mostly to enhance coordinators. So just to show you where on the gene tracking system, and I will let you know, we'll go through a live demonstration of how this works at the end. But our bulk upload basically is pulling up a template, which is an Excel file, and you just have to use structured language of HDNC gene symbols, as well as choosing your expert panel to upload that file. And so again, that should help facilitate the entry of multiple genes for your list. For the export, what you would do is come in to your dashboard again and say you wanted to export data. You would be able to pick the expert panel, and as I mentioned, you can pick start and end dates if you want to look at specifically time frames, if you think of quarterly time frames or even monthly time frames, just to keep track of how you're progressing through your gene list, either individually or on an affiliation or expert panel wide look. You can also download all expert panels, but again, this is restricted to just coordinators to be able to have this capacity and higher administrative permissions. But what you will see when this export comes over is you'll see your gene list, again, the expert panel, your curator, and these are all of the status updates that we have. So the date of the pre-curation as well as when the disease entity was assigned, which is captured within this gene tracking system, as well as the actual progress within the GCI. And so to get to the gene tracking system, we have this link, which is the ClinGen.CERS, and CERS just has to do with the Shepherds and unc.edu, where we're housing this particular tracking system. What's nice is when you begin to look at a specific gene-disease relationship that's captured in the tracking system, you can pull up this nice report, and in it, it's going to tell you, again, the expert panel that has performed this gene curation, as well as the phenotypes associated. So this is where we get into the lumping and splitting and figuring out what disease entities were determined here. It will provide the rationale that were used, and we'll go through this through the live demo, as well as supporting PMIDs that this affiliation and or curator had deemed supported the rationale for this lumping or splitting. Any notes that could be captured to give you salient information about the pre-curation you would be able to read, as well as the Mondo ID that was chosen. We do have updates where we're going to have the actual disease nomenclature or plain language besides just an ID for that to be transparent. You can also look at curator status, so it will show you the most updated status, but if you show history, it will show you all of the dates and when each of those statuses were acquired. And then separately, we do have several sections where you can put in notes. So again, if there's any other information that you think would be useful on applying those disease entity or notes in general to just claim that more than one biocurator or more than one group has worked on this, you can add that there for anyone to see. What's also really nice is that we provide flags or alerts to biocurators, coordinators, or any users, I should say, of the gene tracking system. When you go to enter in the HDNC gene symbol for your gene of interest, what you will begin to see is already your first alert or flag to let you know that this gene has already been, at least another affiliation has uploaded and shown interest in this gene. You will be able to know the status, whether or not, again, it's been an approved curation, as well as any phenotypes that they've performed lumping and splitting. So again, if you're starting to see any statuses or phenotypes, you may want to go back to your expert panel, review that record that we have, and take it to them to see whether or not what you want to look for is part of the same disease entity in which you would not repeat this curation, or is it actually a new disease entity and you carry on entering information within the tracking system. There's also another second flag as you go through the process from info to curation type at the phenotype. If you happen to choose a phenotype that another expert panel or group was interested in, again, it will flag you and it will show it to you down here at the bottom of this page. And so we've also provided links and reminders about the gene tracking system within the gene curation interface. So if you're looking at the gene curation interface homepage and you go down to the help drop-down menu, you can be led to the gene tracking system itself. And so that will take you a link to that system. And also, when you go to create a new disease record after logging in, you will get this little flag again telling you before you proceed with this curation to make sure all of the relevant pre-curation has been performed and cataloged in the gene tracking system. And also make sure that you're using the gene and the Mondo ID that is put into that gene tracking system here. And also, I want to note that there is a gene tracking SOP that has been developed that has visual cues for you to show how you get to different parts of information and how you work through this pre-curation workflow within the tracking system. And if you have access to this SOP, as we'll show through the live demo, is in the gene tracking system, or you can also contact this email, which will lead back to myself, and I can email that SOP to you as well. And so we'll go ahead and move on with the live demo. And so I've already logged into the system here. I am an administrator, so I can see multiple or all of the genes that are associated with here. If you are a curator, you may only see on your dashboard the curations in which you were assigned out here. So there are some different levels of permissions, again, in how your dashboard operates. You can go over to this Curations tab where it would show you all curations performed over all GSEPs. This is also the area in which you can download and export that CSV file as you see here. So again, I can choose to export all of the gene list for over all GSEPs, or I can choose by which GSEP or expert panel that is has genes listed in here. Again, we can specify a date range. This is very helpful when we think about our milestone in reporting, that we can go through the quarters or the half-yearly reports. But also, if GSEPs just want to look over how they progressed over a month or two or the entire part of their affiliation, they can do that as well. You would just leave those blank. Another nice way to facilitate information and crosstalk between individuals is on this working group tab. And what it does is it lists all of the working groups that we have currently, and it will list subgroups within them. So for instance, we can have the hereditary cancer clinical domain working group, and we can see all of the GSEPs that are within that group. It will also provide you information on individuals to contact. This will show you both the coordinator as well as a biocurator that may have been part of that effort. And so you can keep going through here, and you can also use this page just to see the curations within that group, and you can search for certain genes of interest. You can also search. This is a broad search. So if you want to put in a person's name, or if you want to put a Mondo ID, an OMIM ID, it should be able to pick that up in this search. That's the same not only within these working groups, but on your dashboard homepage. So for instance, if I wanted to start to look at curations that I did, it will pick that up within this search bar. I want to show you really quickly, if you go in, each person has their user login here, and there, if you go to your drop-down menu, you can see not only your capacity for your role in this, you can do the bulk upload that we had talked about again, and this will take you to a page where you can define out your expert panel. This will download a template which is in an Excel spreadsheet. This Excel spreadsheet, what you need to do in the least amount, and it tells you that, is to be able to go to this tab called Curations. And then you want to at least put the HGNC gene symbol for each type. All of the rest of this is just dependent on what you want to fill in. So at the very minimum, if you put a gene symbol and you distinguish what expert panel, you will upload your gene list. We do also provide what curation type if you want to fill out the full entire pre-curation information if you have done it offline and not through this system. That is up to you. Let me go back down here. And so also within this drop-down menu is the SOP. So again, this will bring you to a link and bring you out to the PDF to show you our SOP and how you can actually use this system. And it does split up to let you know whether it's between a coordinator's role to be able to perform this versus a biocurator role. So to actually look at entering information in the pre-curation for the genes. First, you can just take an interest in your gene in general, put it into the search bar, and I can already see that there are 3 individuals interested in this gene. This is where I told you you can nicely look at the reports for the information we have here and captured, as well as any of the statuses if you bring this up. Now, if I wanted to go back and start a new curation, I can go to my dashboard again and hit the radio button here, saying that you want to add a new curation. It will ask you for the HGNC gene symbol of the gene, and you will put that in. Already the flag will appear if you have any genes that are associated or have been flagged for other groups. And so LMNA here we can clearly show has had different statuses of pre-curation within the UNC Biocuration Core, as well as 2 other groups that are interested in this. If we wanted to, now I do want to mention that this flag is here to let you know and to, again, encourage you to talk with these other groups about the curation, but it does not prevent you from moving on to a curation. After this point, I can decide that I want to pick a certain panel for where I want to do this curation. That will be the affiliation in which you are doing this curation for. And if there are curators assigned to there, I can add that in any notes. This is a nice area where if there are more than one curator that are assigned to this group, or you're working in collaboration with another gene curation expert panel, or your parent CDWG, you can provide notes here. And then you just want to create your curation. So hopefully we don't get hung up. There we go. So this is where we start to get into the pre-curation information in lumping and splitting. What we've decided to do with this is that once you put in the HGNC gene symbol, it goes back into OMIM and starts to bring out every single phenotype as well as the MIM number and the inheritance pattern that has been asserted within OMIM for this gene of interest. It gives you as a curator as well as an expert, if you're on this, an idea of what are the assertions that are made in the literature currently about this gene with disease. And so then we ask you certain questions to fill in logic to figure out how you would want to proceed. If you do want to curate a single gene disease entity on this list, which means you're wanting to only pick one, you would choose that logic. We also understand that you may want to curate a single gene disease relationship that is not on this list. This is especially important for more novel gene disease associations. And so you have the ability, again, to push this and move on to a second set of questions. We also understand you may want to curate an isolated phenotype. If you've assessed that many of these disease entities are part of one phenotypic spectrum, we would encourage you to actually lump the curation for the syndrome and to curate and give a classification for that. However, we understand that individuals do want to pre-curate information on a specific phenotype. For instance, if we wanted to just do cardiomyopathy, which is actually part of the Emery-Dreifuss muscular dystrophy for this gene, you could go ahead and say that input and salient information. It will be known, though, that this would probably not result in a classification for that gene phenotype relationship at the end, and then also to curate a lumped phenotype. So if we were to choose this choice and we move on to next, we would have to be able to associate. What we did is we allowed you to be able to pick what phenotypes actually are part of the lumped entity, and you can, again, choose the ones based on the information that you have from your pre-curation. We also ask you for your rationale. You will notice that this is the rationale in the lumping and splitting criteria. We also give you a highlight of what this lumping and splitting criteria is, and we provide you a link out to the overview of those pages, again, just to help facilitate defining that disease entity. Once you put them down, and this is the criteria, we ask for you to put any supporting PMIDs that you have as well as rationale. This is that other flag that I mentioned where it will let you know before you save this that there are other entities, and you can see them bolded here, that already UNC Biocuration Core has lumped those 3 entities that you've highlighted within one disease spectrum. So again, you may want to consider before you put in this entry speaking with this group. But again, it will not restrict you at this point of making a record of this. And so after we go back into next, we will then define the Mondo disease entity. And for there, this is where we provide you a link out again to Mondo, because this is the ontology as well as the IDs we use in our gene disease relationships and for our GCI records. And you would put that in here. For instances where you do not have an appropriate Mondo ID at the time and you are engaging them to create an ID, we do allow you to put in a free text for the disease entity. We would encourage you to put in that Mondo ID eventually once you have gotten it and come back and save this record. And so I will go back to the curations here. And so again, depending on the gene you have, you will have different logic. If you say that you want a phenotype, it will take you through a different amount or an iterative of this process. But this is the main objective of this ClinGen Gene Tracking System. So I just thought I'd take time to ask any more questions if there are any. No questions? You may all get off of this call early then. I will let you know that at this point, we only have coordinators who have access to this. We are working on those the permissions that we were talking about. So within the next couple of months, some of you may be getting an email out from the SHEP Center and from CERS indicating that you have the ability to come onto this gene tracking system. That won't be junk. We'll try to facilitate your coordinators letting you know if you've been chosen. But right now, we are leaving it up to them of who will be registered users to be on this tracking system. So as the time goes by, you may see that you now have permissions to get on this tool.
Great. Thank you, Courtney. Does anyone have questions for Courtney?
This is Alison, not a question, but just say this looks fantastic, Courtney.
Oh, thank you.
Really, really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we hope that it just really helps facilitate, the communication and just, lack of redundancy of gene curations and just the transparency of what's being done over our GSEPs, so that we can all move through to curate those 15 to 20,000 gene disease relationships at this point.
Yeah, don't say that number out loud.
Yeah. Well, I will say at least if we come down to the bottom of this page, it will tell you the actual number that we have in here, and it's growing. You can see it's a very extensive page, but we are at least up to 2,200 gene disease relationships that our current GSEPs are looking over. So that's nice to see it growing month by month as we get more and more expert panels coming up.
Wait till you get our list.
Right.
Yes. Don't worry.
Yes.